Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Unscripted Coding. Today we are going to be playing around with this PDF lib for JavaScript to create a front-end web-based interface. In short, I have a bunch of these documents that I'd like to fill out, and they can come from government, from work. I think we've all seen this type of scenario many times before, where you have a lot of PDFs that you have to fill out, and you don't really want to go through each PDF and fill it in, and say you have your name here. It also shows up later down in another section, and further down in another document, and you have a thick stack of these. The idea is hopefully we can create some web interface where you fill out your name once, your address once, and it populates everything. It might even look a little better too. This form looks very much like a form, but when you put a web interface on top of it, you can start putting together pop-ups. You can start putting tooltips, explainers, videos, all of these things to make it work very easily. So this all starts with PDF lib, and we're very excited because you can actually just import it as a source. So as a script. So instead of having to install npm or yarn or some other tool, you can use this module pretty easily. So I'm going to be able to stick script source equals one of these content delivery networks and get started. So I'm hoping this is fairly easy because I looked at this front page and it looks pretty comprehensive. You have the ability to create brand new PDFs, modify documents, stamping things on top of it. You also have, of course, what we're looking for, filling in fields over here as well. And you can do various other things, of course. So we're really just looking at filling out fields, and we might even modify a couple of the fields if absolutely necessary. But more or less, we're looking to create this front-end interface on top of all of that. So given that we know our direction, I'm going to stop and we're going to take a look at, we're going to take a shot at trying to build this out first. All right, we're at a point where we have functionally proved that we can do what we needed to do, but I had to go through a few steps I didn't think of at the start. So you see here a blank website. It's completely irrelevant because what we're looking at is this code right here. And I am just going to zoom in really quick so you can read it. What we have is just a little bit of code to download files. We'll come back to that. But we pulled this entire front piece from the PDF lib demo, just here, and a little bit from filling out the form. So a little bit here as well. And really, it is as you imagine. I am looking at the local files in the same folder. It's going to read the file. It's actually fetching from a URL, but basically exactly where you're hosting. And you're going to get the forms, and for each field, we're going to set the text. We're going to try and set the text to hello world. Now, one of the reasons why I would try catch block is because some of these have various filters on them. They have to be postal or zip codes. They have to be phone numbers, email addresses. They can't be hello world, things like that. So we're skipping that. We're just trying to see if we can fill out the fields. And then finally, we save the file, which saves it as this array of bytes. And then that's where we have this download blob come in. That was this earlier piece where I got from Stack Overflow of how do you convert that array into a downloadable file. Now, if you were using Node.js or NPM, things would be much easier. You can use a simple command, but instead we gotta go a roundabout way to get this done. There are probably many other ways for you to do it, but let's just find out an easy way now. So let's just see really quickly. When we run this, it prints out all the fields, and then it fills them out, and then at the very end, you download a file. And over here, you can see that we filled out hello world, hello world, hello world, all across every field that we can. So, proof of concept done. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start creating a form and start adding multiple files. So this is one of a handful of files. This is another PDF. We store it all in the same folder. And if I fill out a first name, I'd like it to show up here in the buyer name. And then over here in, I don't know where else, full name, full legal name of individual. It's not important that we figure it out. It's just creating this proof. Now, let's go through the couple of issues we actually had. The first is that when we tried to just run this HTML file, there was a CORS issue, meaning you couldn't just link to PDFs on the same folder. Now, if I post all these files on the web, on AWS or Azure storage instance, that is perfectly fine. We wouldn't have a CORS issue, but in this case, locally testing, we have to run a Python web server really quickly so that it recognizes all of these files in the folder are from the same server. They're not going to try and block cross-origin requests. Not a huge deal, but you might need Python, you might need Node.js, you might need something on your local computer to make it work. Next problem we had is downloading the file itself. So PDF-lib doesn't export into a nice PDF at the end. That's where we had this download feature function. This is very common. I've seen this issue in machine learning, in creating images online. This is something that I probably should store or bookmark, so I Google this up probably once a month and copy someone else's answer along the way. So very common, not really an issue, but I didn't expect it. The one I didn't expect, and you may not encounter, is that these files I had were all encrypted. Now, they weren't password protected. They share them publicly, but the idea is you can't edit this text. You can't edit these fields, which makes a lot of sense. But there are many ways to strip this kind of security. You probably saw me Google it. But really, the quickest way for these is to just search Google, decrypt PDFs online. And the first one worked great for me, smallpdf.com. I've done it before. You may not want to put very sensitive PDFs through it, but for these ones, they're available to the public anyways. I am not planning any shenanigans of changing this text. I just want to fill out the fields. So that was an issue. Very easy, just go online. I'm sure most of these other ones will work fine as well. You just throw the file, get it back, and in the end, what you're going to have is a decrypted PDF that you can edit and you can interact with in different ways. So that's a quick update. We'll be back when we get a little further in of creating forms, engaging with multiple documents. Okay, so I think we have our proof of concept ready to go here. Obviously, this is vastly simplified. If you take a look at this document, there are just so many fields, and this isn't even one of the long ones. So going back to the context, I have like a dozen of these forms that have so many fields, and this is just a shorter one, that we want to make sure that we don't fill, say, my name over and over and over 10 or 15 times, wasting time. And some of these formatted differently. So for example, we might have the full legal name, and then we might want to split first and last name, and you might want last name, first name. All sorts of these different formats, and you don't want to worry about that. And you don't want to worry about how this form looks different from the other form. So having a web interface benefits because you have consistency. You only need to fill it out once. And you make it easy for yourself. You can throw in instructions. You can throw in interactive elements in there as well. Anyways, going a bit long here. We fill out the first name and last name, and then we click download. And we're going to get the document with the full name in the right area if we were doing this properly. But for now, you know, we have control of where it goes, and we could have put it under any one of these fields. And we also are able to do this for multiple files. So FinTrack, using those same fields, are going to fill out here and here, which are areas that I just randomly picked. So how did we do this? Well, let's go back to our code and just see what we've done together so far. First of all, the major thing you're going to need is you're going to need PDF lib. You're going to want to import it somehow. You can use Node.js, you can use a script tag, but you need this library to fill in PDFs. Then we have a very simple web form. This is a text input. You might have checkboxes, number inputs, address inputs, whatever fits what you need. And finally, we have two buttons, one for different forms. And as you can see, I might create 10 or 15 more of these for different files. The magic here is going to be how we're tracking all these variables. So we're going to be tracking two different sets. Up here, we're going to track what we're tracking on the web page. So these variables match up with the web page, first name, last name, and any other things that you're going to put in the form. This bottom one is going to match, this form data is matching what you have in the PDF files. So I have a path to the PDF, and then as the key in this dictionary, and as the value for each PDF file, you're going to have a giant list of each of the field names. And when you look up each of the field names, you're going to get the type and you're going to get the data. And we're going to handle, say, text fields differently from checkboxes. The trick here is we're keeping this form data within a function. That way, every time we print out a report or click some sort of button, we're going to run this update variables, and we're going to dynamically generate this form data. So over here, customer name is where we pulled the first name, last name from the field, and we're going to put it as the appropriate data to fill in our PDF file. Now, if we scroll all the way down, there's quite a few fields. We can skip this. This no longer needs to be here. We have the download, and then we have the fill form. Now, I put a path input for fill form because that way we can reuse it. We're going to click buttons, and they're always going to go fill form, but you're going to have a different path to a different file. So in this case, we might go for that privacy notice. What's going to do is update that form data, pull it all out. We're going to get to a path, load up the PDF, and then we're going to go through each item in that form data, and we're going to fill out the PDF appropriately. You can see we have multiple cases in Switch so that we can check out what type of field it is. In this case, we've only seen text and checkbox fields, but PDF lib had a couple different options. Just show you here. There's a button, there's a checkbox, drop down, option list, radio group, signature, and text field. So there's a few options for you to fill out. And depending on how you want to handle it, you're going to treat it appropriately. So in this case, it's a text field, so we're going to set the text. In this case, the checkbox, we're going to check it off. And finally, we save and download. And we're going to use the path to generate the appropriate name. And you have it ready to go. You click the button, you update all the fields, and then you fill out the fields for the PDF. You can easily imagine how we can improve this. One button to download all the files at once. You have a much nicer design. I'm not really a fan of this blue. Overall, lots of ways to improve the experience, but the idea is ready to go. Now, one last thing I wanted to mention is that these are government and industry forms that I have. So they're reasonably well organized. I'm not going to say they're great, but they're reasonably well organized. But if you do have a PDF that is basically, say, a scan or really badly done, there aren't these fields, you can always just download. Well, I have Adobe Acrobat for work, so I'm able to modify and add these fields myself. But there are lots of open source PDF editors that will allow you to put in your own field, edit the fields, make these changes. And I also talked about decrypting any sort of files that you may have problems with. So you have lots of opportunities to get the template, clean it up yourself, make it very easy for you. and then throw it into your system. The other possibility that is an entirely different project is we don't use PDFs at all. You maybe create a Word document, retype all this text, and enter the right variables. You obviously use a different library than PDF-lib, but that is also another idea that I was juggling, that I might dynamically generate certain document files. I mean, I think lots of us have very menial office jobs where we type the same letter over and over, except with different names and different dates. Almost all of the same ideas apply. You just swap PDF-lib for something that handles Word documents. So, I actually think this is going to be a pretty useful tool in a lot of places. Not just my own curiosity right now, but also in my workplace, your workplace. So I'm going to throw this one up on GitHub, and there'll be a link in the description. Feel free to modify it. It's obviously far from perfect. I'm going to polish it up just a little bit more, but hopefully you found that helpful. If you did, check out my videos. My next video next week, and follow and subscribe. Thanks for watching.